is the greatest moment in my life.
What
Hey,
a
yo.
brilliant start. That's a week off because he's had the shits, comes back and then just coughs in front of everyone. The heart of professionalism.
I do apologize. That little bit of vape went down the wrong way and made me go a little bit. So yeah. But hey yo, we're back.
Finally. Hello.
Finally, yeah. Morty there in the chat. Good start site. Oh yes.
The less said about Morty, the better in my eyes.
Wow. We'll get to that in a bit, I expect. Speaking about being incredibly unprofessional, Dan Griffin will talk about this, about this in the chat, no doubt. Recording for Doctor Who pod yesterday. I was about 10 minutes late to the recording because I couldn't get my headset to work. And, well, first of all, I couldn't get my headset to work, so that was irritating. But then it turned out I'd literally just not plugged it in. So I was sat with my headset on, and the mic wasn't picking up and the sign wasn't working. I was running the tests on it and nothing was working, but it wasn't plugged into my laptop, right?
I would love for you to have been going mental and Dan's at the other side of the computer and you had the wire in your hand. Why is this fucking not working?
Well, I said to Dan, as you can imagine, I confronted my usual patience and professionalism, of course. Yeah. And
Darren, why is this bloody headphones not working?
But what actually made me late was I sat down to watch the couple of episodes that we were reviewing, and subtitles came up on the TV. And I can't watch telly if the subtitles come up. I know some people watch TV, like Scottish Daniel watch wrestling with the subtitles on and stuff like that. I can't do it because I can't watch what's going on because I keep reading the words. But I couldn't figure out how to.
I'm also trying to watch things.
Yeah, and I'm typing stuff, and it messes me up, mate. So I spent a good 10 to 15 minutes trying to get rid of the subtitles on my screen before I could actually watch what we needed to watch. And it turns out with BritBox for Doctor, there's just a tiny little C in the corner. You click on it and it goes away. But yeah, it took me a long time to figure that out.
You're like a Neanderthal, aren't you? You were genuinely like the old man, like waving his fist at the clouds.
Yeah, to be fair. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, you say that, right? I was quite close to shouting at clouds the other day because
where piss I sit off, you clouds.
No, I wanted them to come back because where I sit in the front room. Hang on, listen. There's a reason to this. Where I sit in the front room, where my chair is in the front room, sometimes the light comes in through the like certain time of day. The light comes in through the window and it's crazy bright. And it hits exactly where I sit.
That's the aim of Windows, to let light.
Well, yeah, but I'm trying to watch something on the telly and I'm being blinded and I'm getting my hair off. So I was like, well, there was clouds there a moment ago. And when I sit down with me a bit of grub and my cup of tea and I'm ready to watch what I want to watch, I'm having my hour chilled out or whatever. I hate if I have to get up for anything. So if the phone goes or the door goes, I get pissed off. And I was really cross at them clouds because I had to get up and shut the curtains halfway through eating my toast, mate. That pissed me right off.
This must happen to you regularly, though, because the sun comes out every day.
It does do that, yes.
So there's 3 easy solutions. One,
right?
Get some blinds or curtains and close them whilst the sun's out. 2, move your television. Or 3, move your chair.
See, right, okay. I'm not going to move my TV because, as we spoke about before, our house is quite small, and it's our front room is quite an odd shape as well. So where it sits at the moment is fine, and the missus has just hung it on the wall with a bracket and decorated and the wallpaper and all that, and it looks the business. 2, I'm not going to move my chair because where the TV is hung is the perfect spot for where the telly is. With regards to the curtains thing, that's why I got cross with the clouds because when I sat down, there was no sun, and then the clouds moved.
So I have to get up and walk 3 steps to just pull these curtains a little bit. How dare you, clouds?
Mm-hmm. That is pretty much how that afternoon went, yeah. Just a little insight into my life. There we go. But anyway, Maxie, anyway. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever and whenever you may be listening or watching from. This is Chain Wrestling Live, an SJP World Media production. I am Si, and with me, as always, is the hot rod to my odd bod. getting a bit old, not as toned as I once used to be. The Cindy Lauper to my total pauper. God damn, January is a long, long month. Payday cannot come quick enough. A podcaster who makes every event a happening, as Gorilla Monsoon may say. The podfather himself, Lord Mags. How have you been, mate? Because it's been a couple of weeks again.
Yeah, I hate it when you scarf because you literally threw in the towel with about half an hour to go before we was going live. WhatsApping me going, oh, I've been throwing up. It's coming out of both ends.
I had a funny head. I had a bit of a funny turn, mate. That's what that was, And I had to make a decision there and then because I don't want to turn around 10 minutes before we go live and go, yeah, I'm not better than I was an hour ago. Got to make a call right there and then, haven't we?
You did, and we had to let the CWF down, but that's fine. No, I like to base the start of my week round this show. So you threw me for a loop.
So did you just get your days wrong for the rest of the week then?
No, luckily I was.
Luckily, I own a calendar.
Yeah, luckily, but I have a clock that tells me the day. No, I had a podcast recording set for the day after, so I just moved on to someone new.
Oh yeah. I know.
And we'll get to that in a little while.
We will indeed. Shall we jump into the chat and see who has joined us early doors, Magsy?
Yes, we shall. So first off was Connor. He said, good evening. All just wanted to jump in and say that he's got an interview for a full-time broadcasting and play-by-play position for a local university. That's absolutely
brilliant stuff.
Yeah, good luck with that, Connor. And yeah, hopefully you'll smash it out of the park, lad. Dan Griffin and Sharon on the congratulating Connor train. And then Sharon is reliable. She turns up every Monday, and it's Monday night. You know what that means.
She wrote that on YouTube last week as well. It just wasn't our video because we weren't live. She's that on the money. That reliable
with the crying tear emoji because we weren't there. Morty says, "Good start, sir. How about Morty? You keep your opinions to yourself. We'll get to that later on." Dan Griffin says, not the first time Sar's gone live gagging on something, Jesus Christ. And that's the title of his sex tape.
Let's move on.
King's Pigs Bladders in the chat. Hello, ladies and gents. How are you? Dan said he was as understanding as you'd expect. Now it's either used to it, so he just puts up with it, or he went flying off the handle and
he laughed
and
at me.
The gaff up.
No, he just laughed at me.
Morty says, one day there's going to be a little self-help group full of SARS course. There is a group on Twitter of that, and Sai's in it. He just doesn't ever comment.
It depends which one it is. I left one this week, I think.
You left a group?
Yeah, there's loads of group chats on Twitter, and it always seems like it's the same people. And I was like, well, why am I part of all of these groups?
So why do you not just mute the groups?
I do.
And then,
but then what?
This one just wound you up enough that not only you muted it, you then left it as well.
Yeah, pretty much.
Scottish Danny in the chat. Hello, sir. How are you? And Sharon, that bloody son. Sharon is commenting that because all she heard for about 3 hours after that son was you complaining about the sun.
No, she wasn't here at the time.
Oh, she heard it afterwards.
Yeah, probably.
All the way through the night. Like, will you shut up about that bloody sun? No, Shah, you don't understand. It was just so aggravating.
Oh.
Hairy housewife, Fitch, how are you, sir? Good to see you. He says, nice to see two co-hosts getting on nicely. Again, we'll touch upon this later on. And that was Morty's sign to leave because they're not on the best of terms recently. So again, we'll have a little mini announcement about that later on. Sharon's saying what we all think. You are such an old man, sir.
Oh, that tight.
King's Pigs Bladder saying tension. No, not tension between us, surely.
No.
Maybe tension between other podcasters. I didn't even see this one. The Hairy Housewife, bar Felicia to, I'm assuming, to Morty. Having a domestic on another podcast, that's when it gets low. Dan Griffin, live from Sars Shitter. It's chain wrestling. All the farts are real, wet, and live.
And filmed before studio audience.
Jesus. Benny Mac in the chat. Hello, sir. How are you? And then Dan Griffin, Morty and Fitch equals drama. So shall we touch on the Morty and Fitch thing now before we get into the show?
Yeah, let's do it.
So, as you know, I'm not that active on Twitter anymore, and whenever I do go on, I usually have about 15 DMs or groups to read in. I don't leave them ignorantly like Sar. I just don't read them, which is the same thing basically. But yeah, I heard that Morty and Fitz, two of our very good friends, were having a bit of a debate about beans, and this caused a massive falling out. So I think they ended up blocking each other on Twitter and kind of just falling out with each other in general. So I got a message from Fitch asking me if I could help him out with the podcast. So we got talking, and essentially I'm taking Morty's place on the podcast. So instead of it being the Morty and Fitch podcast, it's now going to be the Magsy and Fitch podcast. So yeah, I've usurped that knobhead Morty and his disgusting attitude towards beans on his own podcast.
It's not just a thing about beans, though, is it? Have you actually listened to the episode where they had a bit of a disagreement?
I don't listen to any podcasts.
Then
anymore.
You've got no right to comment and take a pick, have you? Really? If you don't,
Well,
if you haven't heard the episode.
I heard the evidence about the beans, and that was enough to boil my blood. So yeah, I can, and I did take a side.
Okay, well, I don't know Fitch well at all. I listen to their show each week. I've always enjoyed it. I always find it really funny. Morty obviously records Murder in Mind with me. I speak to Morty very regularly, and I think the breaking point wasn't just the beans thing. I think the breaking point was where Fitch referred to him as Jamie Oliver, who is somebody that Morty absolutely despises.
Yeah, I did hear that, and that I'm not saying it's all 100% down to Morty, just maybe 95 of it for his attitude. But yeah, Fitch was in the wrong for that, and it did cause tension. But where someone else's tension has meant that I'm sneaking back into the podcasting realm again,
sliding into somebody else's position.
I mean, it's not the first time.
Hey. It's all right. Morty can carry on working with me on a Murder in Mind podcast, you know.
No, we'll see.
Higher caliber show, my friend. Higher caliber show.
Benny Mac saying, good to see me doing other pods. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that. He says, and have they genuinely fallen out? Yeah. For context, I was actually meant to be a guest on their podcast a while ago, and I was in a little kind of like 3-way group chat with him, and Morty left that group chat, so it was just essentially just me and Fitz. So yeah, I think it's a friendship that's going to take a while to build back up. But you can hear me on the Magsy and Fitz show on the first episode tomorrow. We've already recorded the first
tomorrow
episode.
As we are live. If you're listening to the audio version,
Tuesday the 24th of
yeah, it would have been literally yesterday.
Yeah. Dan Griffin saying this will finish off my podcasting career for good. I mean, it was close. Me and Fitch actually did have some tension on the show because he is a very racist man-child. So there is that. Wow. Smackdown from Sar there, from Benny Mac, and Fitch saying, I don't mind Mag sliding into me. Oh, Jesus.
Ooh, bloody hell. That's an offer and a half, isn't it, eh?
So said the nun to the bishop. Mag sliding into like a podcast hermit crab.
Hermit crab.
I mean, this one worked out perfectly because the song doesn't take that much to change. Instead of it being the Morty and Fitch show, it's just the Magsy and Fitch show.
I hope the new version isn't re-recorded. I hope the new version is just really badly edited, and he's even
Just-
still got the same M from saying Morty, and just goes Ags. Oh,
that would be amazing. But you know, Fitch, he likes to mess around with that vocal changer, so I'm sure he won't. Love the fact that the husband doesn't even keep me in the loop.
It's not really any of my business.
He was more worried about the curtains and the sun that's occupied his man for the week.
Yeah, that did leave an impression on me. I'm not gonna lie.
Falling out over Beans and Jamie Oliver, is it really worth it? I mean, I've had arguments with people over less. And Fitch says, I'm not a racist. Morty made me dress like that.
I think we can all say for a fact that Morty did not expect you to dress up. Well, as a reindeer was the initial one, wasn't it? And it kind of went a little bit wrong. And you just looked like you blacked up for a show.
And lest we forget Brexit Bill as well when he rocked up.
This is true.
Brexit.
Yes.
And Dan Griffin says, I just want Mags' voice dubbed over saying Magsy. Just him, Fitch singing it, and then me going, Magsy, over the top. Or my wife.
The thing is, they put a voice on when they do that. When they say my wife and then go my wife afterwards, that's them putting a voice on. You sound like that anyway, so you're going to fit in really well.
He had me recording lots of different days of the week as well for a future segment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
All will be revealed tomorrow/yesterday, depending on when you're listening to this.
Yeah, so go and check out the Magsy and Fitch pod, I guess.
Yep.
Speaking of
Wherever
segments
you
and
catch
stuff,
your
though,
podcasts.
yes. Speaking of segments, etc., we haven't done this segment for a couple of weeks, and I know you've been sat on an absolutely stunning one, Magsy, because you told me what it was the other day, and I'm really looking forward to this. Shall we chuck some crap into the old Hall of Lane?
Yes, let's. And we've got an announcement about the Hall of Lame after this as well.
Oh, yes, we have. Yeah, I forgot about that.
You forgot.
I did.
The Hall of
Lame indeed. Magsy, what you got for us?
Well, as you alluded to, this one, if I do say so myself, is a fucking cracker. A lot of props have to go to the original source for this one, and that's a YouTuber who goes by the name of Wrestling Bios. Amazing channel, really kind of covers a lot of stuff that we cover, does deep dives into WCW and WWF, reliving the war. But yeah, his videos, if you ever want to go on a wrestling binge, you can't go a lot wrong than Wrestling By. It's absolutely brilliant channel. But he recently did a video calling out Hulk Hogan for his multiple lies, his multiple Billy bullshits. And it was too good of an opportunity for a Hall of Lane to pass up. So I have essentially transcribed the video, and it's just a doozy. So settle in, guys, get yourself a drink, and let's hear some of the crap that comes out of the mouth of one Terry Bollea. So we'll start with a quick 1, 2, 3 punch. So Hogan claimed that at WrestleMania 3 that Andre the Giant weighed over 700 pounds, and that when he slammed Andre, Hogan tore all of the muscles in his back, but he had no time to recover because he had to go straight to Japan to wrestle 29 straight nights. In reality, Andre wasn't 700 pounds, wasn't even really that close to 700 pounds. Hogan didn't rip all the muscles in his back, and he didn't go back to Japan until 1993. which is when he wrestled the Great Muta. So straight off the bat, we've got 3 Billy Bullshits from Mr. Hogan. Next, in his first autobiography, he said he didn't learn that wrestling was scripted until he'd been training for a whole year. He claimed that Eddie Graham had told him it was a work, and he felt betrayed because he'd spent the full year learning how to hurt people, but avoiding getting hurt himself. He then changed his story in his second book when he claimed he realized wrestling was a work when he noticed Bob Orton talking to his opponent and guarding him through the match. So, lie number 4.
And that's in print as well. Both of the, what he initially says and then what he contradicts himself with is in his own books.
The majority of these are in print.
Yeah.
So the next one, you'll love this one, sir. In an interview with the Sun newspaper, Hogan said he used to be a session musician. He played bass. He claimed he was good friends with Lars Ulrich from Metallica, and that Lars had actually asked Hogan to play bass in the band in the early days, but unfortunately it hadn't worked out. When he was asked about this, Lars said Hogan was absolutely full of shit. He said this is when Hogan backtracked and said he had heard that Metallica had needed a bass player, and he wrote letters and made phone calls to the band's management, but never got any response. And James Hetfield? Mm-hmm. He confirmed Lars's version, saying that Hogan was absolutely full of shit. He was never invited to join the band or even invited to audition. Now, this for me is probably one of the worst ones that he's done. So at SummerSlam 1992, Hogan claimed he met a Make-A-Wish child who had cancer. The child was supposed to be ringside for the event, but Hogan didn't see him when he walked out for his match. Hogan went backstage afterwards looking for the child and his accompanying nurse. Hogan was told by someone backstage that the child had actually passed away just before his match started. And this whole incident was the inspiration for a track on Hogan's 1995 album, which the track was called Hulkster in Heaven. And the profits of that song were meant to go to this child's family. The problem is that Hogan had taken an extended break from the WWF after WrestleMania 8, and he didn't come back till 1993, and he was absolutely not a part of SummerSlam 1992. So none of that happened ever, which is that's so bad. So bad.
It's shocking, isn't it?
Yeah. So next, he's a keeper coming. Hogan claimed in an interview he was invited to take part in the early events of the UFC, but he was put off by the sheer violence of the product. So UFC's co-founder, Campbell McLaren, he heard about this and he set the record straight. He said Hogan was never being invited to take part and never had any discussions with the people involved in the UFC.
Can you imagine Hogan in the UFC?
I'm going to put a Kimura on. Oh, that doesn't work for me, brother. UFC commentator and small-time podcaster Joe Rogan perfectly encapsulated this bollocks when he tweeted at Campbell, "If you really disputed a statement made by a flamboyant pro wrestler, you have already lost." So next we'll go to Survivor Series 1991, and this is where Hogan lost the title to The Undertaker.
That was the week with Tuesday in Texas and stuff as well, wasn't it? Is that right?
Was.
That's the right timeline, isn't it? Yeah, okay.
It was, correct. Hogan claimed that the final tombstone screwed his neck up and he had to go straight to the hospital. This meant that Undertaker felt guilt-ridden because he was relatively new in the business in the first place, and he'd also made a promise to take care of Hogan after Hogan had said his neck wasn't 100% before the match. So after the match, Hogan was found by Taker laying on Vince McMahon's office floor. The paramedics surrounded him, and Hogan wanted to talk to his wife and kids. making Undertaker feel that he'd ended Hogan's career, and he was devastated at this. It was only after Taker watched the replay of the spot at this Tuesday in Texas that he realized that Hogan was full of shit about this injury. Taker confronted him about the spot, and Hogan claimed he was injured because Taker had such a strong grip that Hogan wasn't able to move his neck. He said he was injured because Undertaker was too safe.
You actually watch the tombstone. There's like a foot between Hogan's head and the floor. So what's he saying? Like his grip's too tight, so Hogan just extended. What is he? A fucking
Hogan
orange?
couldn't. Yeah, he just said he couldn't move his neck, and the impact, not so much the hitting the floor, but the movement and the kind of like momentum is what injured Hogan's neck.
So what is he? Just a fucking slinky? Just stretches like
Exactly. So this was actually the moment that Taker figured out what Hogan was like in the business, and even though he was professional with him throughout his career, they've never been friends. So let's now go on to No Holds Barred, the famous /wrestling /ridiculousness. So after he read the original script for No Holds Barred, Hogan said it was so brutal that he and Vince booked a hotel room and sat there for 3 days, 24 hours a day, and rewrote the whole script. They were struggling to rework the final fight scene, so Hogan went for a shit. Whilst taking this shit and being half delirious from 3 days with no sleep, Hogan claims he fell asleep and the whole fight scene played out in his dream. He jumped up with clinkers still dangling, ran out of the bathroom and told Vince to write the scene as fast as he could.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, we're not through yet. So 2011, Hogan said in an interview that he'd wrestled a lot of Pride MMA fighters in the late 70s and didn't know if his matches would be works or shoots. This was a lie because the company Pride wasn't actually founded till 1997, 2 whole decades after Hogan had claimed he'd wrestled these guys.
Oh my God.
So in that same interview, Hogan claims he told Vince to change the date of WrestleMania 3 because the Rolling Stones were playing the Silverdome the week before, and Hogan was concerned about potential ticket sales. But the Stones have only ever played the Silverdome in 1989 and 1991, whereas WrestleMania 3 was in 1987. Yeah. The nearest music act to play the Silverdome to WrestleMania was U2, and that was a full month after WrestleMania.
Oh, goodness.
So after appearing on the Arsenio Hall show, the infamous interview during the steroid trials, Hogan denied being on the juice. but in his second book, he added a little crease to this tale. He claimed he told the truth on the show, but he wasn't being honest. He said he wasn't on steroids at that very moment, but he may have been using them a few weeks before, but not on that exact moment was he on steroids. He also claimed he stopped using steroids altogether in 1992. But if you look at his body shape in his NWO run, it's quite clear that that was also a big fat fib.
He's much leaner in his WCW days, don't get me wrong, but he is still freaking massive, isn't he?
Mm-hmm. This one is a mind bender. So you'll have to follow closely to this one. So in Hogan's second book, he claims he wrestled 400 days a year. Not 400 matches, 400 actual days.
Right.
So he claims that during his Hulkamania period, he would wrestle in Japan as well as in the Western markets. He claims he would fly back and forth to Japan twice a week, which means he would have. He also claimed that he wrestled Madison Square Garden one night, then flew all the way back to Japan to appear at the Tokyo Dome that same day, because you would gain 14 hours crossing over the time zones. Then you'd fly back to the West Coast, such as LA, wrestle, and then get back on a plane to Narita International Airport, wrestle again, and then fly to Boston and wrestle again. So essentially, he could be wrestling in Japan one day, fly back across the time zones, land in another town the day before. So he was constantly adding days to his year. But Cage Match confirmed that not only did Hogan never alternate between matches on a day-to-day basis in the between Japan and the West, but he also never wrestled MSG one night in the Tokyo Dome the next night. So yet again, a fucking liar.
Unbelievable. I'm fairly certain that Harley Race, maybe Flair as well, but Harley Race has actually done that, wrestled in Japan and then the States and then flown back. That thing that Hogan's talking about. But I think he did it like a handful of times, not on a hugely regular basis.
Not over a full year to gain an extra 35 days. No. So on MTV Cribs, Hogan was showing off his memorabilia collection, and he grabbed a pair of wrestling boots. He claims that they're the most wrestling boots in the most famous wrestling boots in the world because they're the ones he wore at WrestleMania 3. And that they were his favorite pair because just a couple of days later, his opponent, Andre the Giant, passed away. But Andre the Giant didn't pass away a couple of days after WrestleMania 3. It was a few years after. In fact, it was just before WrestleMania 9. So almost 6 years.
Yeah,
after
Andre
Hogan
passed
claimed
away.
it.
Was it April 93, I think? was it?
January 1993.
January, yeah, okay.
So next we'll go to Hogan claiming that he pitched the idea of turning heel to Vince. Vince shot this down in flames, saying that the fans would never buy it, but Hogan never forgot about this idea of being a heel. And when WCW was kind of floundering, he approached Bischoff with the same idea, saying it would be the biggest shock in all of wrestling. Hogan then said Eric went with the idea to Ted Turner, who reluctantly agreed to the heel turn as long as there was an out left in place. So if it didn't work, they could quickly turn him backface. But Eric Bischoff remembers this story a little bit differently.
Oh, yeah.
Eric claims he went to Hogan's house with the idea of turning heel, and within minutes of the conversation, he realized Hogan was not buying it whatsoever. He wrote in his book, Hogan stroked his Fu Manchu for what seemed like 20 minutes before saying, well, brother, until you've walked a mile in my red and yellow boots, you'll never really understand. He then showed Eric the door and left to pick his kids up for school. So down to the last couple now, and this one is a little bit hard to prove because some people in the conversation have unfortunately passed away. But Hogan stated that Owen Hart often sided with him when the Hulkster and Bret were having disagreements. This is contradicted by every report saying that Owen and Bret were as close as brothers could be, and that there's only Hogan's account that actually contradicts this. And then Hogan added to this by saying when Bret joined Hogan in WCW, that Bret apologized to Hogan and said he was in the wrong. The two actually became good friends after that. So says Mr. Hogan. And sticking on the subject of Bret for the last one, Hogan claims that Bret told him after the Goldberg kick had seriously injured him that the only person Bret would wrestle was Hogan because he knew he would be safe in Hogan's hands. But the problem with that is that after the Goldberg match, Bret had 9 more matches for WCW, and he wrestled Hogan in exactly 0 of those matches. So, yeah, my very elongated entrant into the Hall of Fame this week is the fucking Billy bullshitter that is Hulk Hogan.
It is awful, isn't it? It is absolutely terrible.
Just
That one by Andre, for example, and the dates not lining up. There's Scottish Daniel probably say in the chat, I'm fairly certain it's one of his books. He tells a similar story, but he puts it down to that Andre had never lost and never been body slammed anywhere in the world, which is absolute nonsense. Hogan had slammed him himself several times. Harley Race had slammed Andre several times. Andre had been beaten in the past, obviously, but he took it as Andre passing him the torch because he knew that Andre was going to die in a couple of days' time. So Andre passed the torch to Hogan for him to carry forward with the WWF. He didn't die until 1993.
Yeah. It's just I don't understand, because all these are provable. They're provable by just minutes of research. So why would you think that you will get away with this bullshit?
Is it just some level of delusion? Does he believe what he's spouting? Or
He
I don't
may
know,
have
mate.
massive CTE. Or he's just surrounded by so many yes men that he believes whatever bullshit comes out of his mouth.
Brutus Beefcake just there, like, in between gobbling Hogan off, going, yeah, do you remember when you beat Andre?
Exactly. So that's my entry for this week.
Very, very worthy. Very worthy. So much crap has come out of that guy's mouth. And it's a real shame as well, because regardless of how he's behaved in recent years and the whole racism thing and all these issues that have popped up with him, a load of us wouldn't be wrestling fans if it weren't for what Hogan did in the 80s. It's really, it's a shame.
Correct. Yeah.
It's a shame. My entrant is, I suppose you can link it with Hogan a little bit, to be fair, because it does affect Hogan in a way, but it's not actually his fault. First of all, the WWE Network. I think everyone who is a wrestling fan can agree that this is a fantastic device. It's brilliant for stuff like we do. It's brilliant if anyone wants to go check out old matches. And, I look at all the podcasts I have that involve wrestling. None of them would be taking place if it wasn't for the WWE Network. It's as straightforward as that. I can go back and watch. Everyone knows I can go back and watch any old crap and people laugh at me about it because it's old 80s shit, whatever. But I love it. However, there are certain moments on the WWE Network that are, I'll go as far as to say they've been ruined by certain actions of the WWE. And I'm going to point out, effectively, we'll use the Hogan one as the main example, the dubbing of entrance themes, Magsy. So many great memories that now you can't go back and view them on your television in the same way. And Hogan at WrestleMania 18 is one of them. We don't get the actual entrance music that was used. We get an overdub, and it's terrible. The Midnight Express, one of my favorite tag teams going, their theme is overdubbed on virtually every single time you see them, especially on the old pay-per-views, Jim Crockett Promotion pay-per-views and so on. Ruins it completely. Ruins the effect you get from the crowd as well, I feel. It is, because you're not getting the genuine crowd reaction, are you, Mags?
No, you're absolutely correct.
You do get the odd couple that are okay. I mean, Sid Vicious in late WCW, his dubbed theme is quite good, but at the same time, his dubbed theme is still not as good as the Scorpions music that he actually uses. And also, as the last, Jericho, his theme in WCW, they impose or dub his WWF theme over his WCW entrances, and that's a shame. We have the Road Warriors used to come out to Iron Man in Jim Crockett Promotions and the NWA and Mid-Atlantic and all these other territories, all been dubbed over. And we talk about the Road Warrior pop. People talk about this all the time. This is, a well-known turn of phrase in wrestling. We don't get to hear it because it's different in the WWF. They still get a big pop in the Legion of Doom with their music there, but the Road Warrior pop in places like Charlotte at a Great American Bash or whatever, we don't get to feel the effect of that via the network anymore because of all the dubbing and not being able to hear Iron Man and so on. Raven's theme was overdubbed as well. But I suppose the biggest one for me that stands out right now is anytime we watch ECW and pretty much every entrance theme is dubbed. And even the WCW remakes, the later days are dubbed, and Enter Sandman for the Sandman coming out. The guy couldn't wrestle. His character was very primitive. His wrestling was even worse. He is about the entrance, the music, the beer, the cigarettes. And what made the Sandman great is gone because of the WWF dubbing these themes. I understand there's financial reasons and copyright reasons and all that sort of stuff for that. I completely understand. But my entrance into the Hall of Fame this week is the fact that the WWE, I suppose, not paying for the marketing, not, however it wants to be worded, the WWE taking away a big part of certain memories I have as a wrestling fan with their dubbed entrance themes on the network, mate.
Yep, it's a very, very valid pick. And even the match that we'll be covering later on was Hogan's theme was dubbed into that. He wasn't even using Real American at that time. I think
Barry Windham was.
I think that Hogan and Mr. T actually came out to Eye of the Tiger, was it?
That's right.
And it's all dubbed over with Real American. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It takes you out of those memories. It's almost like you're a self-imposed Mandela effect because you're remembering what actually happened, and then WWE overdubbing the music and the entrances, and it makes me go mental. It makes me absolutely crazy because it's not how you remember it. So yeah, I agree with that. I mean, there's some stuff that the WWE are very right to remove from the network. There's some incredibly archaic and draconian thoughts, and wrestling has always been a place where there's been some very sketchy mindsets. So I have no real issue with those being done, but entrance musics, they're a massive part of the wrestling character. So yeah, I agree with you. It shouldn't happen, but the WWE don't care a jot about what we think, unfortunately.
No. There we go. It's a shame. It's a shame. But there you go. Those are your entrants in this week's Chain Wrestling Live Hall of Lame. Hulk Hogan being a big, fat, racist fibber, and the WWE ruining that big, fat, racist fibber's entrance music, as well as many others on the WWE network. If anyone can think of any further Hulk Hogan lies, true or not, who cares? Let's have some fun. Or if anyone can think of any more dubbed themes that piss you off or you think are a shame that aren't around anymore on the network, let us know in the chat. Before we get to our non-wrestling topic, Magsy, do you want to jump into the chat now, or do you want to speak about what we're doing with regards to the Hall of Fame and changing it up a bit and so on now? Or
no, we'll just we'll burn through these chats and then we'll come back to it. So Sharon says everyone should get comfy. Magsy's going off on this one. Yeah. So for last week's lost episode, I'd very rarely give away what I've got for my Hall of Fame, but this one I was so proud of that I actually sent Sai a screenshot of the title. I didn't want to send him all the words, but I sent him a screenshot of the title. Scottish Daddy saying Hogan in the Hall of Fame, colour me shocked. Scottish Daddy says I have both books. They're absolutely insane. They're just full of shit. He just talks out of his absolute arsehole.
China's apparently is another one as well. China's book, there's a lot of inaccuracies in there apparently.
I don't think I would take any wrestler's book as gospel truth, to be quite fair. Hulk Hogan is full of real American shit from Benny Mac. Dan Griffin says don't buy the sun, fucking shit rag. Absolutely. Yep. Scottish Danny, I love Hogan getting called out by Metallica. It's not even just getting called out, it's just Lars Ulrich, who he claimed invited him, said you're full of shit, because that just never happened. And
the timeline, obviously we pointed this out with the wrestling stuff as well, but I don't know, I've not got it in front of me, I'm going to go just off the top of my head now, but the timeline with regards to bass players in Metallica, it just cannot work. Cliff Burton was the bass player in Metallica before he passed away. He was a huge part of starting that band. He's not going to want himself replaced.
Interviewing for himself.
Do you know what I mean? So when
Cliff, you in the band doesn't work for me, brother.
When he passed away and
I'm the third man.
When Newstead took over, Hogan was already massively established in the wrestling world. We're talking main events of WrestleManias and so on. He's not going to go across and play bass for Metallica, is he? It's just so stupid.
Oh, he's an absolute clown. Dan Griffith saying, is Hogan the biggest bullshitter in an industry full of bullshitters? I think he sets the standard. He's the bar setter for bullshitters.
I think you got to throw Ric Flair's name in there as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of his, though, are CTE lies
Right,
as well, though,
yeah.
because that guy's brain is jelly.
Yeah, it is. Totally.
Benny Mac saying, worst lie that Hogan told was he claimed something like a Make-A-Wish kid came to see him at SummerSlam when he wasn't even there. Yeah, we covered that one, Benny. Cam Griffin, hello, sir.
Hello.
Late to the party. Glad to see you back. Shitty arse Hogan is fucking hysterical. Can you imagine Hogan falling asleep on the toilet and then having a fever dream of him farting Zeus at No Holds Barred? Just
and
ridiculous.
then running across the bathroom into wherever Vince was sat.
I hope toilet roll was hanging from his arse cheeks.
Just
like a
Can you imagine
tail.
as well, like the protein poo, it would be as well, wouldn't it?
just a big solid block, like a ball.
And before anyone mentions it, and I know who it will be, Dan Griffin, we are not having a shitty arsed Hogan t-shirt. It's just not going to happen. I'm not going to make that image.
Hogan would sue for that, and then he'd want all the profits.
He would.
King's Pigs Bladder says Hogan's got him blocked. Not sure why. I'm lovely. I mean, that's like a badge of honor on Twitter to be blocked by Hogan. Cam Griffin saying, "Hold up, is Hogan only just going to overlay?" No, he's. I think he's been in multiple times already so far. Benny Matt, maybe Hogan is brain damaged from the time he was in the UFC.
Brilliant, Benny.
Brilliant. The Hall of Lame could have a Hogan bullshit wing. Cam Griffin says an Encarta style version of Hogan shit. I mean, it would come on a DVD, that bullshit. Dan Griffin says, don't know about CTE, but he is a massive CUN. King's Pig Bladder, happy about you mentioning Barry Windham.
Well, it wasn't just Barry Windham. It was actually a Hall of Lame inductee as well, Mike Rotundo. They were called the American Express. They were a tag
and
team,
Hall of Lame entrant Barry Windham, aka the Stalker.
I've just blocked that from my mind, mate. I'm not having Barry. No, I don't want to talk about it.
Hulk Hogan is the only wrestler to eat peanut butter from a shoe. We've covered his meat shoes in a previous episode.
I'll tell you what, and I bet Fitch hasn't even heard about that because he's not a big wrestling fan and so on. We'll have to dig out that episode and send him. Honestly, Fitch, it'll blow your mind. Especially
the step-by-step recreation that someone did to make those shoes. It's just, honestly.
Hulk
it's just
Hogan
quality.
meat shoes.
China's book is on the bookcase in our bedroom. So there you go.
Gathering dust because I sure as fuck won't pick it up.
I imagine Hogan's dingleberries have Fu Manchus. How about the turn emoji with a Fu Manchu? There we go, sir.
Oh yeah, okay. I mean, if you'll buy it, I'll make it. How's that?
And Fitch says he's down for some meaty shoes. Maybe on the next episode of the Mags and Fitch show, we can discuss Hogan's meat shoes.
I imagine they do have a slightly different, not just people from our circle listening to that show, people who are non-wrestling fans, and it's not a wrestling story, it just involves Hogan. And these Hulk Hogan meat shoes, I think it ticks a few boxes for the Morty or Magsy and Fitch show, actually. It's that kind of craziness, isn't it?
Yeah, it's ridiculous that this was even an idea from somebody. He must have had this idea at the same time he was taking his shit and thinking about the match against Zeus.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the chat all caught up on.
Fantastic stuff. Now, with regards to the Hall of Lame, it's not going away.
I mean, start the ball off straight away with upsetting the
I just said it's not going away unless people want it to go away. You know, it's not going away. But we're going to try and sort of just freshen it up a little bit, Mags. We've been doing the Hall of Lame now for bloody hell. It's got to be pushing a year, hasn't it?
Yeah, yep. I mean,
Yeah.
and there's still lots and lots of topics
yes.
that absolutely deserve to go into the Hall of Fame. But new year, and kind of like we just wanted to freshen it up a little bit, the segment. So we've decided to switch it to it being a fortnightly segment. So
Yep.
it'll be every 2 weeks. But that doesn't mean you're getting less chain wrestling for your money, because we're gonna in the gaps we're going to have a new segment that we've dubbed Mags versus Sa, where we're going to quiz each other on our lack of wrestling knowledge. So every other week you will get a mini quiz, and we'll hopefully figure out ways of getting you guys involved in either the questions or things like that. But yeah, we're looking to, starting from next week, we'll be adding to our tension, our friendly rivalry by having Mags versus Sa.
Yeah, it's got to happen, because I got to try and win something, so I keep losing bloody goal. So
Dan Griffin, I'm backing Mags every week.
yeah, because I just forget everything.
my wrestling knowledge is, I am disgusted on how much I forgot. It's ridiculous. I have got wrestling Alzheimer's, definitely.
Wrestling Alzheimer's, bloody hell. But
yeah,
yeah,
Sam might know the answers, but it's whether he remembers that he knows the answers.
Yeah, this is true. It's in there somewhere. I've just forgotten whereabouts I've left it. But yeah, that's kind of the, like you said, Maxie, we're going to try and get the CWF involved, questions off them potentially, or however we decide to work it out. And yeah, I'm quite excited. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. It's been a little while since we've had a new segment, hasn't it? So I'm quite excited about this.
Yep. So am I.
Yeah.
Seems
Good
my
stuff.
idea.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Shall we now get on to our non-wrestling topic?
And this is another doozy.
It is indeed.
NWT time. Oh, no wrestling talk here. It's the non-wrestling topic.
Lovely.
Nice. Lovely. Nice.
Ooh, lovely.
Lovely.
Oh, that belch. Yes, last week's non-wrestling topic. Well, it started off as one idea, but everyone in the CWF, as they sometimes do, just grabbed the ball and ran off of it in a different direction, Maxie.
It's almost like they don't stick to the rules. I mean, I don't know where they get that idea from.
I don't know who could influence them in that way, eh? Bloody hell. Basically, wait
till my pick later on.
Wait till your pick. Oh, God. If I have to watch freaking 17 hours of Hornswoggle matches, I'm going to be pissed off. I'll tell you that.
That's why you were sick in the first place.
Yeah, it did. It turned my stomach. This week's non-wrestling topic is, I suppose, the only way to sort of talk about it is to say it's about smells, Maxie, isn't it? It's guessing. Well, we thought it was going to be guessing what certain celebrities or even wrestlers or, politicians, whoever, what they smell like. Just a bit of fun, trying to put a bit of a comedy twist on things. I mentioned maybe some members of the CWF as well. And everyone kind of latched onto that and ran with it, didn't they?
Yeah, basically this became, what hilarious smell can we believe that the CWF smells like? Indeed. And mainly me and you.
Yeah. So I will run through on Twitter in the order they arrived into us. And if I miss anyone, I apologize. Magsy, give me a shout if I screw up. These screenshots are now 2 weeks old. I've not looked at them since then. So I can't remember, there's probably whole conversations here that I've got in the wrong order. So please bear with me. We start with our good friend Dan Griffin at DanGriffin21 on Twitter. He says, has to be done. Magsy smells like big dicks. But in the brackets, he's put coffee. There we go. When he says he smells like big dicks, he plainly means not your own.
Although it may be small, but it does smell.
You smell like other men's knobs.
You can't go around smelling strangers' cocks.
You can't. You get a spot of bother with that. Dan Griffin's podcasting partner on Unbooking the Tankatory and the UTT podcast and all that other great stuff. Rob at UTT Rob on Twitter. He says, I have a pretty poor sense of smell, so to me, not very much. Although, can't miss the opportunity to say Boris Johnson probably smells of failure. Yeah, I can give a few things that Boris Johnson smells of. That guy's a fucking turd, isn't he?
He is, and he's back in Parliament now. So that's
Is he?
good. Yeah.
I must have missed that. I got enough to worry about in my own life without looking at how this guy's going to screw everyone else's up as well.
Ironically, he's caused a lot of the problems in your life.
Well, this is it. Pig Splatters at Pig Splatters on Twitter. He's given us a few options here. At Millwall Chris, he says smells like jelly deals.
He gives off a jelly deals vibe, doesn't he?
He does, doesn't he? He does. Imagine the mess when he's bouncing around on his castle that Morty and Fitch say that he lives in, his big bouncy house. You're going to have to get in on all that now, Max. You're going to have to learn all these
It'd be
insides
more
bits.
like a slip and slide,
It will.
won't it?
It will.
More
Just
the
eels
jelly.
flailing around.
Have you ever tried jelly deals?
I have not.
Yeah, they're grim.
No.
They're grim.
My cousin, when I was a kid, threw an eel at me once when we were fishing, and I cried.
You cried.
Yeah, I mean, I was very little. It wasn't like I went when I was 20.
And
I
it
was
was
like,
a huge eel.
it was like a fucking python or something, mate. It was huge.
It was like a python.
Yeah, it was like a water python, and he got, they were my dad, my uncle, and my cousin and I were fishing, and he grabbed it. I've never been a big fan of that sort of thing anyway. It's not not my cup of tea, especially when I was younger. But my dad wanted me to go along, and my cousin, who was obviously a bit more of a sort of rough and tumble proper boy, as opposed to how I was maybe, he got himself stuck in there, grabbed an eel, threw it at me, and I cried and cried and cried all the way home.
Did you eat the eel?
No, I fucking
Well, no,
didn't.
you didn't eat the eel. You've already said that you never tried eel.
Pig Spiders continues that apparently I smell like a nice, strong cheddar cheese. I'll take that because he put nice cheddar cheese.
Yeah, but I mean, there's the easy joke there, and he's missed the ball. It should have been a double Gloucester.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Morty apparently smells like licorice all sorts, according to Pig Spiders.
I get that. I get
Yeah?
that.
Okay. I'm not a fan of licorice all sorts, mate.
Oh, the shit.
Yeah. If we get licorice all sorts for whatever reason, I don't know why we would get them because I don't like them, but if they're ever in the house, I've got to eat the nice bits off and then just throw the gammy licorice away.
So I don't mind the coconut wheel ones.
Oh, yeah.
You can snap the coconut bit off, and then the missus loves licorice, so she gets the middle bit.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, even the ones that are like different layers, they've got the white layer, then the brown layer, then the licorice. I'll scratch them off with my bottom teeth and then throw the licorice away.
So you don't want the licorice, you just want the all sorts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if they just sold all sorts, I'd be over the moon.
What do you think of the jelly ones? With the
The bobbly
balls on?
bits.
Yeah, they're crap.
I like the idea of them, and then I eat one, and then afterwards I'm like, I don't enjoy that. Why did I do that?
Tastes like aniseed.
Yeah, but then again, I will do it again. I know I will do this again in my life, even though I'm sat here right now saying I don't like them.
It's like you're a glutton for aniseedy punishment.
Exactly, mate. Exactly. Apparently, you smell of kale.
No, that's meant to be a diss. It's meant to be offensive, but I am actually happy with that because I like kale.
Okay. What is kale? That's like lettuce, isn't it?
No, it's a green leaf. It's probably more like spinach.
Okay, fair enough. Do you really want to smell like spinach?
No, it doesn't smell like spinach. It's nice. Just
okay, I'll move on.
I'm happy with it. Just like you're happy with a strong cheddar cheese, I'm happy with kale.
Fair enough, mate. Fair enough. What a combination we would be walking into a club together. And apparently, Fitch, according to Pig Splatters, smells just simply of disappointment.
No, I will not have any besmirchment to my my new tag team brother, Mr. Fitchy Poos. So that one I don't agree with.
Stop talking like that, mate. I'll start getting jealous now.
he's my new side chick.
Exactly. Ben, at Witticisms of Ben on Twitter. He says, Theresa May smells of special brew, linseed oil, and shame.
Linseed oil. Jesus.
Oh, special brew as well. Lovely. Harold Bishop from bloody hell, this is a reference. Harold Bishop from Neighbours would smell of pink wafer biscuits and Old Spice. I had a bottle of Old Spice for a very long time.
I was giving it when I was knee-high to a grasshopper.
I was giving it to hide the smell of a flying eel I once encountered.
It beautifully masks the cheese smell.
It does. No, I got a bottle of I don't know if the wife bought it me or it was part of a box set I got. But
Was
I had
it
it
the
for
old
young.
school one? What had like the little white stopper in the top?
Yeah, the little one. Yeah. I'm assuming that's the noise it made. Otherwise, that was pointless. But yeah.
It's not going to go.
Pink wafers. I do like.
Awooga, is it?
I would buy more if it did. They're missing the
It'd be
marketing
the
trick there.
best-selling aftershave. But yeah, slagging off pink wafer biscuits. I'm assuming he's slagging them off because you normally mention Old Spice when you want to call someone a fuddy-duddy, don't you? Because it's.
Yeah, but to be fair, I thought Old Spice smells all right. I like pink wafer biscuits. So if I lived on Ramsey Street, I could move in with our listener, our good friend Chris Mangle, couldn't I? He lives down that way, and I'd probably spend my whole time living there sniffing Harold Bishop
Or Madge Bishop.
No, Madge don't smell like pink wafers, mate. She smells nasty, I bet.
What does Madge Bishop smell like then, sir?
I don't know. Not wafer biscuits.
Piss. I think piss. Just
think
like, do you know, like incontinence piss? Like she should be wearing
stale piss.
Tenor lady pads. Like
she's
a cough and a bit piddles out kind of piss.
With this, stench of terrible Old Spice as well. She's tried to hide the smell of her
just splashing it from the bottle, and she'll be fuming because that little hole, it didn't come out very quickly, so she'd have to really give it some.
Which little hole you on, mate?
In the Old Spice bottle.
Right, okay. This has took a funny
The other
turn.
little hole, it comes out flowing like a waterfall.
You can imagine Harold getting ready to go for a day at the community centre to go play dominoes or whatever Harold Bishop used to do. And he grabs the Old Spice bottle and it's empty. And he's like, "Oh, Madge, you've pissed yourself again, haven't you, love?"
I only just bought that last week. Just opens the door, whiffs the Old Spice and thinks, "Fuck that! I'm going out. I'm not coming back."
I'm gonna go see if Lou wants to go check out the strip club or something. Bob Holly apparently would smell of carburetors, bleach, and the tears of rookies. I like that.
Bleach as well, perfect for his ridiculously blonde hair.
Yeah. Morty on Twitter at MortyJR5, who you can hear on the Murder in Mind podcast on SJP World Media. Season 2 is being recorded at the moment, and we've had so much fun doing it. So it'll be with you very, very soon. He says here, we did this back on the show. Pig's bladders is close, but Millwall Chris was apparently smelling of pork pies and piss. So another shout for wee wee.
And the Justin Timberlake gif though, just the abuse Chris has took.
Yeah, I like Chris. He was lovely when I met him. There we go. Speaking of Chris's, we have Chris Bellis at Real Chris Bellis on Twitter. And he says here, I suppose at the moment, Morty smells of salt, particularly when alluding to poor Fitch. So he's picked which side of the fence he stands on, Magsy.
I've never liked that Chris Bellis.
Well, no, he's siding with what you're saying.
Oh, right. Well, that's fair. I've always liked that Chris Bellis.
Are you even paying attention to what we're doing?
I'm trying to find his comment. I can't do two things at once, but it's not.
Just here. It's here on my phone. See?
Yeah, that's useful to me.
He says as well, lads, this feud had better be a work, brother. But well, there you go. Fitch here himself at podcast_Fitch. He says, I think that at witticisms of Ben smells like baby powder and Old Spice. More Old Spice.
Another shit. I don't think Old Spice has sold so much. We're like a walking advertisement for Old Spice.
We want to we should get a sponsorship deal with them, and then we could like churn out a 15% off code like every 10 minutes, like they do on UTT, but for Old Spice. I
mean, yeah, because we're as good looking as that bloke on a horse who magics diamonds up in his hand.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that advert. That's good, that is. I like that. He cracks me out, that bloke.
We're easily as good looking as him.
Mate, honestly.
We would shift more bottles of Old Spice than he would.
When he takes his shirt off, he's covered in all these weird bumps as well, so he wants to go see a doctor. There's something wrong with him there.
I know he has got some weird bumps where his fat should be.
Yeah, I'm concerned about that fella. Fitch also says Chris Evans, he would smell of jammy Dodgers and Tizer.
Now,
I quite
which
like-
Chris Evans though? The ginger one from Don't Forget Your Toothbrush, or Chris Evans, the Hollywood actor who was, I think, was he Captain America?
I don't know. I'm gonna go with the ginger one because I don't know who the other guy is.
Captain America.
I know who Captain America is. I'm aware of Captain America.
The guy, him, that's Chris Evans.
But no, I'm aware of Captain America, right?
Not
he was
Steve Rogers, not the character.
Who's Steve Rogers?
That's Captain America.
Is Steve Rogers the actor?
No, that's Captain America's alter ego.
Like Clark
who
Kent,
is-
Superman.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
But the actor's
know-
called Chris Evans. I'm sure he is.
Right. Well, I don't know who that is.
So you think the ginger specky one who used to do the big breakfast?
I don't think he's Captain America. No.
No, but you think he smells of Jammy Dodgers and Tarzan?
I expect so. Yeah.
That was convoluted.
Okay. Cat Deely. Cat Deely smells of aniseed balls and plastic. Okay. I've gone right off aniseed, mate, after all that sambuca at my work, Stu.
And because it reminded me of Cat Dealer.
Well, yes, this is true. Johnny Depp apparently smells of the inside of a pet shop, but not one of those well-known ones, the sort of one you get down a side street. So it's going to smell a little bit musty, isn't it?
just instead of his own piss, just multiple animals' piss.
Yes. Ben responded to Fitch saying, FYI, I smell of decorum and leather, like a fine wing-backed armchair. Okay. Matt Butler at Trey Butler on Twitter. He says at Mr. Rogers smells of dupe and sweaty nightclubs. Okay.
Very.
Dupe? That's a shout, isn't it?
It's a relatively new aftershave for us oldies. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when dupe came out. Everyone used to wear dupe, didn't they, for a while?
And then Fahrenheit. Did you ever have it down Gloucester, the Fahrenheit craze?
I thought Fahrenheit was a drink, like a shot.
No, it's an after. Have you been drinking aftershave?
I fucking hope not.
It would explain a hell of a lot.
Okay. No, I thought Fahrenheit was like, you know, when in like the 90s and early 2000s, you go into a club and everyone smelled of dupe or CK1 or whatever. And on the bar at the back, you would have displays of that drink Metz that was in the silver bottle. And then you'd have like Aftershock or whatever in the square bottles. It was all misted up. I thought there was a round one called Fahrenheit.
I have never heard of the drink Fahrenheit.
Have I just made that up?
Yeah, I think so. That's the Mandela effect straight away there.
I can picture it in H2O, which is a little shitty bar in Gloucester. Sharon, I remember H2O. Do we drink Fahrenheit in H2O, Sharon?
I hope she says you did, and it was actually aftershave.
Well, yeah, my barman was the little dude in the toilet. And I had to put a pound in the box.
Shah, they're selling shots in the toilet. Pound a go. I found this lovely one. It's called Fahrenheit.
Yeah, it burns a bit on the way down.
I've now got an headache.
Makes your breath smell fantastic.
My guts are hurting.
Cam at Cam Griff 92 on Twitter. He says that you, Magsy, smell of beef hula hoops.
Ironic, because that's one of the missus's favourite crisps. So I probably do.
I would smell of air fryer sprites, apparently, which is a fair shite. And apparently, my good lady Sharon in the chat there also smells of air fryer sprites that I make.
Because they're just lingering around
reluctantly.
The house.
Yeah.
Secondary smell.
Yes, exactly. Pig's bladders apparently smells of hot sauce. Okay. Ben would smell of laundry detergent. That's quite a broad scope, isn't it? Laundry detergent. Because you get some that smell nice, some that smell bad. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it going like high end, like Daz or Surf?
Is that high end, is it?
I don't know.
Shane
Not a
Ritchie
big-
turning up on your doorstep shouting about how what his t-shirt is.
Yeah, exactly. Or does he get like actor?
I don't know what that word. I don't. These are just random words now. I don't know what any of that
Yeah,
is.
you don't know how to work a washing machine.
I
That's
don't.
very-
Like I say to Sharon quite often, you know, I'll put some washing on. Show me how to use the washing machine. I'll just do it. You know, but she keeps telling me no. So I don't know whether she's worried I'm going to screw
You'll
it up.
break it.
I probably would. Scottish Danny apparently would smell of Starburst. I think that's a great shape.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Well,
Starburst or Skittles or
and
blood.
and Brasso from polishing his knives.
Yeah. Oh man, you smell of Starburst and blood. Morty would smell of steak bakes, which would be fine with me because I love a steak bake. And Dan Griffin himself would smell of shame.
I mean, that's not new for Dan, to
Nah.
be fair.
Nah, he's actually got a little bottle labeled shame, and it's just like, you know.
It's just him. It's just the smell that undulates from Dan is just 100% shame.
Sam Rogers at Mr. Rogers88 on Twitter. He says that Cam Griffin would smell like a fine 10-year-old single malt with strong cheddar. So whiskey and cheese. That sounds like a night out in Gloucester.
Just put a shot of Fahrenheit in as a chaser.
Yeah. Whiskey, cheese, and Fahrenheit, and you're away. Dan also responded actually saying shame and stale stout is his fragrance. So should bottle that. Sam then said shame, stout, and salty tears. Fitch apparently, according to Sam Rogers, smells like lofts, damp and foisty. What a great word, foisty.
That is a good word.
Yeah. And Mr. Rogers apparently smells like the mustache of Hulk Hogan, according to Fitch.
Cam actually replied to Sam and said, in reality, he smells more like baby wipes, twister lollies, and BO.
That is a combo. Oh, dear me.
I mean, how do you smell like BO if you've got the baby wipes? Surely you can just have a scruff's bath and at least smell of the baby wipes. You can cut out the BO.
Is that what you call it in Burnley? Is it a scruff's bath?
Well, yeah, a tramp's bath.
Okay, so it's a festival wash where I am.
Yeah, it's also called that as well.
Fair enough. Cam also says here that Mr. Rogers smells like old school Sunny D and fruit winders.
Fruit winders, Jesus Christ.
Do you remember Sunny D, man? That was
Sunny
just like...
D was the shit for about a year, and then people realised it sent you absolutely hyperactively doolally.
People realised it was actually killing you from the inside. It was
I mean,
you.
I don't think I've ever seen orange juice that orange. It was just unbelievably orange.
It would almost glow on the shop shelf, wouldn't it?
Yeah, you could
Almost
see in the dark with it.
Yeah, almost like, you know, like the beginning of The Simpsons when you got that green bar that's glowing because it's like radioactive. The orange equivalent of that, wasn't it, on the shelf?
Yeah.
That's something for you to try, Scottish Danny. If you can get hold of some proper original Sunny D before they changed it because they realised it was like, no, just fucking killing the nation or some shit. But yeah, try it, mate. You'll probably like it.
I mean, he loves Red Bull, so
he does.
Not much different.
I don't understand, and I'm not saying this to, you know, be mean or comical or anything like that, but I don't understand how Danny hasn't made himself ill with the amount of Red Bull he drinks.
Yeah, he must piss and shit yellow.
Yeah, he must have some real strong tolerance to that stuff. Fair play to him.
And maybe that's why he goes out at night murdering, because he's so pent up with energy and rage.
It's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg, isn't it? What came first? The fact that he wanted to go murdering or the fact that he drank the Red Bull? Did he
Which made him murderous.
Yeah, which way round is it? Let us know, Danny. Let us know. Ben says Giles Brandreth smells of terps. I don't know who that is.
You do, Giles Brandreth. He used to do the early morning breakfast show on like RTV.
No.
You see him every now and again now on Celebrity Gogglebox, and he used to. Didn't he used to be on Countdown as well? He used to be on Countdown
Yeah, I know.
in Dictionary Corner.
Yeah, I know who he is. Yeah, you're right. Gogglebox. Yeah, I know when you say that. Yeah. Ja at Yalmolroit on Twitter says, "I ain't saying anything about other listeners because I will be meeting a few of them in a couple of weeks."
He has played his cards very well.
He's done well,
and then
there,
he'll find out because he'll go around just going.
Mm.
And
You
then
could
write
live
it down.
tweet us. You could live tweet us.
What everyone smells like.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
Like Andy smells of frozen peas and
Euro
shit.
piss.
and Foster's.
Yeah. He says here, I reckon Curly Watts smells of Febreze. Ken Barlow smells of charity shops. They always smell damp, don't they?
What, charity shops?
Yeah.
It's because people sending clothes in black bags like washing.
But why can't they just, make it not smell bad?
I mean, people sending horrible foisty clothes. And they're also like staffed by little old women who also smell bad as well. Yeah, so
pissing themselves and drinking Old Spice.
Just not even bothering wiping it up, just laying down a load of clothes and just pissing all over them and then selling them to people for 10p.
Yeah, there we go.
That's how Star got his new shirt.
Exactly, mate. Exactly. Steve Bull will have a smell of graft, and William Regal will have that football program smell. Okay.
Steve Bull, the guy who we said, or I particularly said, looks like a really good hugger. I don't think he'd smell of graft. I think he'd smell of like Savlon.
Yeah, okay. And Les Battersby smells of whippets. Is that a northern thing?
Whippets, yeah. Well, it's a Yorkshire thing, really. Whippets.
Yeah. Everyone smell like whippets, do they?
Not everyone, just a lot of them.
Okay. Sam Rogers here continues. David Dickinson smells of Ron Seal and more Old Spice.
He's beyond Old Spice. He's more like Ha Karate, I think, for his aftershave. Old Spice is newfangled to Dickinson, and the Ron Seal is a good shout. I'd say more creosote.
Yes.
Ron Seal is definitely a good shout because it does exactly what it says in the tin, and it makes him. How is he not being pulled for blacking up? Because he is incredibly dark.
Oh my god! But David Dickinson is a racist, is what we're saying, is it?
Have you? I call he has a show today. Is it called Real Deals or something like that? And yes. I caught a few minutes of it, and he's honestly looks like he's doing an impression of an actual black man. He's so dark, like ridiculously dark.
They're all a bit weird.
It's bad.
These TV antique dealers, they're the ones that like on Antiques Roadshow and do all these Real Deal show and all that. They always dress bloody strange, and they're always
because they found the claws in the antique shop. One of the guys who used to do Antiques Roadshow actually comes from Burnley. I can't remember his name. Yeah. It was before David Nicholson became like the face of antiques. But yeah, right. I can't remember his name though.
The very leathery orange face of antiques.
No, he wasn't particularly. He's more grey haired and had a bit of a beard and had normal looking skin, not like old Dickinson.
Yeah, but I bet you wore odd clothes then, didn't he? Because they dress strange as well, don't they?
Yeah, they wear a lot of teacher style jackets with that the leather patches on the elbows and tweed, a lot of tweed.
Yeah, and then like a bright bow tie that doesn't match anything else they're wearing. That's bullshit.
Or one of those like bow ties that have like the long bits dangling down.
Oh, like the Cowboys?
No, like just a massive bow tie, but the ribbon part dangles out.
Oh,
like they've won a prize at a dog show.
Yeah, and their face is actually the part of the. Yeah, I get you. That's all, mate. That's all I got from Twitter this week.
Well, you missed Scottish Danny saying,
Oh, Danny, I'm sorry.
Gonna guess this guy smelled like something from the deep blue sea. Why? Because he was not a man, he was a fish. I don't think sharks aren't actually fish, though, are they?
I don't know, mate. I don't know.
And
But
also,
that's the line from his promo,
he was an earthquake as well.
He was, and we've just got to that point in Nitro Nights where he tries to get rid of all his gimmicks, John Tenter, and says he's not an avalanche. He's not an avalanche. He's not a fish. He is a man. So you can buy a Nitro Nights "I'm not a fish, I'm a man" T-shirt on the SJP World Media merchandise store. So... oh, there we go. Magsy, shall we dive through the chat before we get into a little bit of wrestling? Unless you got anything to add.
A lot of it is slagging you off. We'll can't
awesome.
Lie.
I look forward to that then.
So, Dan Griffin, you'll drink anything watery, sir. Yeah, including terps, cream soda. That's one of his favourites. Which
I like
is
cream
just,
soda.
Yeah, and now we know he drinks Fahrenheit. So that's why you were going with the idea of cream soda being a cologne, because you'd ran out of Fahrenheit to drink. And you thought you'd just have to slap on some cream soda instead.
Yeah, I wonder what that was that I'm thinking of.
Sharon going in on you. You like pink wafers and Old Spice because you're old. That's the second time she's called you old in this episode.
And that's just on this episode. The rest of the day is full of it as well.
The next edition of Sharon slags off Sar. Sar's only excited because he's actually seen something.
And it's an advert.
Yeah.
She's right.
Dan adds to that by saying he was so smug when we were recording yesterday and he understood a movie reference.
I can't even remember what that reference was now.
Sharon continues. Sir, you've seen The Avengers, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, is that the 4-hour one I watched? Is that the one? Was that an Avengers film?
And she thinks that you should go into the Hall of Fame. Wow, she is firing at you today.
What have I done to upset you, love? Well, no, don't answer that.
Fahrenheit was huge here, but as we all know, Sai is about 25 years behind everything else. So he's now only just discovering Fahrenheit.
And it tastes lovely.
Cam Griffin says it's got to be Fairy non-bio for Ben. Yeah, that's actually a really good shout. Do you know, on that subject, my washing powder, the washing powder that we get, actually comes in sheets. Doesn't come in like a powder or a liquid. It actually comes like almost like a piece of paper.
That's quite an odd boast to make.
No, it wasn't a boast. It was just a fact. I wasn't showing off about my washing powder.
It sounded like you. Wow!
Sheets.
Look at you, scummers, using powder.
The reason was because the powder kept blocking in the powder drawer thing.
Right.
So I got some sheets. Anyway,
cool.
Back into the you bastard. Back into the chat. Morty says they call it a Glasgow wash, which sounds. Okay. And Cam says that David Dixon smells of brew. Oh Jesus Christ, that's it. That's a blast from the past. In the green long neck bottle, I remember that, with the kind of vinegar bottle like stopper in the end, so you couldn't like splash it all over you. Sharon says, I can confirm that sharks are a fish. And she also then carries on slating your name. She went, oh my God, sir, that was Justice League.
Yeah, Justice League was the 4 hours one. Yeah, okay. You're right.
And Justice League is not Marvel, it's DC.
It all kind of blends into one for me, mate. I'm gonna get some hatred for that on Twitter.
Yeah,
I know
you can't say that.
No,
You're not allowed to say that.
Is what it is, though, bud. Is what it is. But there we go.
I bet you wish you had the shits this week as well now, after all the grief you took.
I'm starting to feel a bit jippy, but thank you so much to everybody in the CWF on Twitter and in the chat as well for messaging in and basically taking the time to slag me off and say I stink of various things and mock me for my age and all that sort of stuff. It's been a blast as always, but I guess Magsy, we should probably talk a bit of wrestling, considering we are a wrestling podcast.
I mean, we could just wrap it up, but then again, let's not.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Maxie won the poll again.
I mean, who's keeping count?
Well,
Certainly
not
not
me
you. Yeah, because that Excel file has not been updated for a
No.
long ass time.
It's going to take like a whole evening of me sat there going back through like shows and Twitter and all sorts to update that. And it's getting to a point where we really need that updated because I'm going to link to stuff and I'm sat there going, shit, have we done that before? And I got no point of reference now.
I mean, I can vaguely remember what we've done since I came back onto the show. So I used the Excel file as a reference to what we did before. But yeah, luckily it's worked so far.
Okay. There's a chance my selection later we've done before, but I've got a backup. So tell me if we have, but I don't think we have.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Magsy won the poll and took us way, way, way back to, I suppose, where it all really began, sports entertainment wise, with WrestleMania 1, the power of Hulkamania and all that shenanigans. Madison Square Garden, 1985, Magsy, wasn't it?
It was.
That's right, yes. 85, yeah. And we have the main event from that show, Hulk Hogan and Mr. T taking on Paul Orndorff and Roddy Piper. They both have I suppose, a corner guy with them as well. The babyface team has the murderous bastard of Superfly Jimmy Snuka, and the heel team has honest Cowboy Bob Orton. And but I've not seen this show in a very, very, very long time. It's not one that I would seek out, and I like putting older stuff on when I go to bed because I fall asleep to it. I tend to find if I put more modern wrestling on when I go to bed, it keeps me up because it's a lot brighter, a lot louder, and so on. But this isn't one that I've gone back to in a long time, Magsy.
I mean, I totally agree with you. I mean, until last week when I watched it, and then I had to rewatch it again this week. It's such an iconic match because of what it meant for the wrestling business. But yeah, it's just one that is not on my rotation at all. I think before this past couple of weeks, it must be 30 years since I've watched this.
Really? That much?
Yeah.
Why? Obviously, it's the big thing with WrestleMania is the celebrity involvement. That's been something that's ran for all the years, all the decades, all the way up to where we are now, and it really starts here. And we know that everyone knows the stories. If you don't, they're easy to find out. Like McMahon having to remortgage his home to pay for this event. It was a big gamble and all that sort of stuff. The list of celebrities they had involved, I mean, it really was kind of a who's who of that time, wasn't it? When you think Mr. T in '85. Oh my God, that's a big, big name.
Yeah, Cyndi Lauper. I mean, I don't think she gets enough recognition for her involvement in making WrestleMania as big as it was, and without her and her connections with Captain Lou Albano and stuff like that, WrestleMania may not have been a thing. And where would the wrestling world be now in 2023 without WrestleMania 1 in 1985 being a success?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting as well, I think, to maybe at some point, if we can link to it in the future. I've not done it, so don't panic, but have a look at WrestleMania 2, because the one big event is important. That's a big explosion, isn't it? And that is huge. If WrestleMania 2, I mean, it wasn't, they changed the format and went to 3 different venues, 3 different events, and all. Really, brave, daring concept in 1986. And it didn't quite work. But if it had completely bottomed out, then that would have changed the face of wrestling as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's interesting to go back to these points in wrestling and realize the effect that they've had on the wrestling world and on us as fans.
Yeah, And not just the celebrities as well. I mean, you mentioned there Cyndi Lauper and Mr. T and so on. We had Liberace as well, was there?
Yeah.
Who was a big deal around this time. It just so much, extra on top, isn't it? The sizzle, I think Gorilla Monsoon or Pat Patterson maybe used that term, the sizzle on top of the steak, I suppose, to, But you look down the card as well. I've just got it in front of me now. When you look at, I'm not saying the in-ring action was particularly spectacular, don't get me wrong, because there was a lot of slow, plodding, old school WWF style matches on this card, but just the names involved. You listen to the names involved on this card. You had Tito Santana there, who was a big name. King Kong Bundy. Ricky Steamboat wrestled Matt Bourne. And Matt Bourne could really go. Matt Bourne could go.
Yeah.
Brutus Beefcake. Okay, we mock him all the time on this show, but he was a name still. Don't get me wrong. Bruno Sammartino didn't wrestle, but he was involved. The Junkyard Dog was a huge draw in Mid-South. He was on the card. Greg Valentine was there as well as the Intercontinental Champion. The Iron Sheik, Barry Windham and Mike Rotunda, Andre the Giant. Obviously, Bobby Heenan was, hovering around as well. And then, of course, the women's title match, Wendy Richter, Lelani Carr. Just so many stars there.
It's a Hall of Fame card.
Yes, it really is. It really is. Something I noticed as well, Maxie, that it's a funny one for me because when I think of old school wrestling, I think of the dark, dingy arenas, not very well lit because they try and hide the fact that they're not always full, especially with the likes of Jim Crockett Promotions or Georgia or Mid-Atlantic, wherever. A lot of these venues sometimes wouldn't fill the arena and it would be quite a poorly lit. They still, pull thousands of fans, but the back end wouldn't be, illuminated to expose
tough and things like that.
Yeah. I never picture that when it comes to the WWF. I think of WrestleMania 3 being bright and huge and massive and all this sort of stuff and being the opposite of what the other territories were promoting. And that's why it succeeded. Here, they sold out Madison Square Garden. There's close to 20,000 people in that arena. But here it's really dark, even though it's full.
Yeah.
That surprised me.
I would suggest that it's just a snapshot of the time. With this being Vince's kind of like last roll of the dice and putting all his eggs in one basket, perhaps Lartin was low down on the pecking order of things that he was spending his money on. I mean, the star power that is on this card, in not just with the wrestlers but with genuine mainstream stars. The money that he's thrown out to try and make this a success. Yeah, I can see things like Latin and stuff like that being very low down the totem pole.
Yeah. What gets me as well is, though, we get the entrances and so on, and it goes from being a dark, dingy. It's not dingy. It's Madison Square Garden. I'm using the wrong terms. I apologize, but you know the sort of atmosphere I'm trying to sort of put forward.
Yeah, I mean we've watched Madison Square Garden matches before, and you are absolutely right. They're a world away from this. Like it's just very poorly lit.
Yes, but then it gets darker. After everyone's made their entrances and the bell rings, they actually do the whole lights out around the outside of the ring so people can focus. So it gets even darker. And I don't know. Again, I know we're banging on about the lighting probably for far too long here, but it absolutely fascinated me how this was lit in comparison to other things at the time, I guess. Jesse Ventura and Gorilla Monsoon are on commentary. I like Jesse Ventura as a commentator. He did a lot of WCW in the early 90s as well. I think this guy is great. Gorilla Monsoon I've got a lot of respect for, but I've never had him in the same bracket as, say, a Jim Ross or even a Vince McMahon, to be honest.
Okay. I mean, I love Gorilla Monsoon, not particularly in this era. I think he worked his best with Bobby Heenan.
Yes.
So I can understand where you're coming from. Jesse and Gorilla don't scream out as one of the greatest commentary partnerships going. And also, this was a relatively new thing This was a huge event, and I think a lot of what Gorilla's job on this card was to tell people how big an event this was, and I think he kind of went overboard with that a lot. Not just during this match, but during the whole card, he keeps going back to how monumental an event that this is. So yeah, I think maybe he just wasn't as fluid with his commentary as he would end up being maybe 3, 4, 5 years down the line.
Yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Oh, you mentioned there about how big an event it was and the commentators pushing it. Ventura at one point tells us that there's 1.2 million people watching. I don't exactly know how closed circuit television works, but I'm fairly certain at this stage they wouldn't have that number.
No, definitely not. That was along the lines of there's 97,000 people watching in an arena that can fit 60,000.
Yes, and 24 countries, apparently, it was being beamed around the world to, according to Jesse Ventura. Again, I'm not sure that's accurate.
Maybe not.
It sounds good. It sounds good.
Wrestling is built on Billy bullshit, as we broke at the beginning of the show.
Indeed. Something I noticed as well in the entrances. I mean, first of all, we get bagpipers for Piper's entrance, and he's the star for me throughout this whole match. He is just the smarmy, horrible, nasty bastard heel. But Orndorff looks $1 million, and Mr. T, he looks small. He's not very high at all. You know, he's not very tall. Sorry, but again, he's still put together. He still looks the part in the ring. You know, height aside, all the guys involved in this match look like they should. They look like WrestleMania main eventers to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even murderous Jimmy Snuka looks well built in this match.
Yeah, he does. The match then begins, and I suppose there's two ways of looking at this for me. They're getting paid. There are, the arena's already full. You know, the people have already bought the pay-per-view, or they've already gone to the wherever it is to see the closed circuit, connections and so on. And the heat is there. The crowd are red hot for this. They are into everything they do. So they can put on a fantastic display and work really, really hard. Or they can take what they've already got and stall a little bit and get away with maybe not doing too much. And I think the first half of this match especially, they kind of stall quite a bit and get away with not doing too much. But the crowd lap up everything they do, don't they, Magsy?
It reminds me of something that Jerry Lawler used to do, where he could get 10, 15, 20 minutes of a match out of stalling, out of doing nothing. And Ric Flair was really good at it. And I suppose they're carrying a guy who has very little wrestling experience as well in Mr. T, even though he was probably the biggest draw in the match at that time. I mean, obviously Hogan is a massive superstar, and Roddy Piper was a massive superstar, but at this time they were kind of insulated in the wrestling world. Mr. T was on another level of a star, so these wrestlers had to carry him in a match. And if you've got to eke out a 15, 20-minute match, you've got to start pretty slow with someone like that. But to be fair to old B.A. Baracus, I think he held up his own pretty well during the match. There was a few kind of points where maybe he didn't kind of get the wrestling world and thought, and he was it got a little bit real. But all in all, I think for somebody who's not known for wrestling, I don't think he did that bad of a job.
I don't think he gets shown up by those around him either. I mean, you can think if you have, say, a celebrity involvement and his tag team partner is busting out moonsaults and insecurities and hurricane ranas and all this sort of stuff. when the celebrity tags in and just throws 3 or 4 clotheslines, by comparison, you're going to look the lesser of the two, I suppose, Maxie, because you've got that direct comparison there. But here, I mean, Orndorff can go. Orndorff was just absolutely fantastic. And we know Piper is superb as well, but he was predominantly a brawler in this stage in his career. And Hogan does what Hogan does. So I don't think Mr. T, I suppose the phrase I could use would be got left behind.
No.
By the other guys doing more than he was capable of. I think everyone was kind of using a similar kind of move set, maybe not by design, but it's just kind of the way it worked out.
Yeah, kind of like baby stepping him through a match.
Yeah. We do get all 4 guys in relatively early as well, though, and it's just absolute chaos. And
yeah, I as an old school wrestling fan, one of the things that really kind of grinds me about matches like this is when the opponents will have discussions with each other about who will start the match, and before you even get any action, any wrestling in, they've then tagged out and tagged in other people, and that I've always found ridiculous. But then when we finally do get to the start of the match, it gets pretty tasty pretty quickly.
It's quite wild, isn't it? It's quite chaotic.
Yeah.
There's, and I suppose something that you can't really say much about Hogan's work is the sort of realism to it. When I think of cartoony 80s wrestling, my mind instantly goes to Hogan.
Yeah.
I don't look at his work and think, okay, that's 100% believable. I'm not saying it was always terrible, but, you could see through some of his stuff. In this match, I think there's a bit more realism in what we're watching. It looks more legit. And I think a bit of that would be down to Piper.
I think a lot of it is down to Piper. A lot of it is the tension seems to be between Piper and Mr. T for me.
Yes.
Hogan and Orndorff, whilst they were having their rivalry at the time, Piper and Mr. T looked like they wanted to beat the living shit out of each other.
Yeah. We get a tease of a count out earlier on as well, don't we? That the heels decide a proper old school trait this is. But they were just like, do you know what? Sod this, and they were off. And
then we got one of the earliest editions of Hogan actually being a heel when he's meant to be the ultimate babyface, because he threatens to punch referee Pat Patterson when Pat's doing his job of counting these guys out, and then he obviously then goes to the ropes and tells them to come back in the ring and stuff like that. But this was, again, just old school 80s wrestling, getting as much out of the crowd by doing as little as possible. And it worked because this crowd were rabid for it.
Oh, they were so hot, weren't they? So hot. We get a bit more fighting on the outside, and the big thing that stands out to me here, especially when Hogan and Piper are scrapping on the outside and on the floor, there's no room at all, is there?
It reminded me of a boxing match when you see a big, like, heavyweight boxing match clash, and then when you get to the end, the ring fills up and there's 100 people from both sides. That's what it reminded me about. There was so many people at ringside. I mean, you had Muhammad Ali, who was the special enforcer. I mean, he wanted to beat the living piss out of Orndorff multiple times. There's a point where he actually comes in and clears the ring when everyone is brawling. Piper hits Hogan with a chair, and it's one of those old-fashioned padded chairs, which definitely did not hurt and certainly didn't destroy every muscle in Hogan's back on that day.
Yeah, but he'll tell you it did. Eventually, the heels work over Hogan for a bit, and I kind of then had the question in my head of how would you structure this? Because a big part of tag wrestling for me, if you're going by like the old-fashioned blueprint for these matches, is the babyface team eventually getting the hot tag, isn't it? do you kind of want Hogan to be the guy who gets the hot tag because he's your champion, he's the star, he's the wrestler, isn't he? But then you got to rely on Mr. T to take the beating and sell and take the moves properly and so on. So you can't do that. So that then means you need to beat up Hogan for Mr. T to get the hot tag. But then T then has to come in and be the house on fire and so on. And I've never thought of it before, but in this instance, it popped in my head about how tricky that could have been to structure, maybe.
Yeah, and you can kind of understand now why the ending feels clumsy, feels kind of rushed, and we've kind of glossed over a lot of this match, and that's because it is basic celebrity mid-80s 101 wrestling. There is very little in terms of actual wrestling holds in this match. I mean, Hogan couldn't really do wrestling holds. Piper and Orndorff certainly could, but they were on the same team. And then you had Mr. T. So it was a very basic wrestling match. There was a few little issues between the matches. There was a point where I think it's Mr. T clotheslines Orndorff, and he clotheslines him like chest heart rather than the neck heart, which is a bit clumsy. Then there's a spot where there's going to be a brawl, and Jimmy Snuka gets on the top rope to obviously do a splash or a double axe handle, and then there's nobody in place for that, so he just gets down. And then when you get to the end, it feels almost like they messed it up, so they had to kind of like go back and go over it, because Bob Orton comes in and he gets attacked by Snuka. He then comes out of the ring, runs all the way around to the post, gets on the post, and he's having to dictate to the people in the ring to get in position because people aren't listening. So we've got Orndorff, he's got Hogan in a hold, looking for Bob Orton to hit Hogan on the head with his cast and get the win. They are both out of position, so Bob Orndorff is having to shout direction to them. You have Roddy Piper hanging around, waiting for his part in this to happen, and then you've got Mr. T, who's 2, maybe 3 seconds off the pace, which means that Piper has to look like a third leg in this situation. So when Bob Orton comes off the ropes and Hogan ducks, he hits Paul Orndorff, and Roddy has to almost act like he's in slow motion because he should be breaking up the pin. Yeah, and Mr. T comes in, like I said, 3 seconds too late, tackles Roddy Piper, and the good guys get the win. The crowd still ate it up, but
they went wild, didn't they?
Watching it on the network, it felt clumsy. It absolutely did feel clumsy.
Yeah. I suppose then, Magsy, out of 10, what have you got for this one and your reasons why?
Okay, so if we were to judge this for what it did for the wrestling world, it's hard to not give this a 10, because the wrestling world would not be as it is now if this match flopped and this crowd flopped and this event flopped. But we look at it as a match in its singularity. I'm not taking into account the event and what the event did for the wrestling world. I'm just looking at this as a match on its own, and for that, it's not brilliant. We have watched multiple matches way better than this, but we've also watched multiple matches way worse than this.
Yes.
I don't think it's quite mid, but it's not like 1s and 2s. So I'm going to go with, out of 10, I'm going to go with 3.5.
Okay. I'm a little bit higher.
Okay.
I would rather watch this again than the Bellas match that we looked at many moons ago. I would rather watch this again than Sting versus Meng from, was that Bash at the Beach 94, 95, something like that?
Was it Bash at the Beach or was it Beach Blast? Yeah, no, I think it was
Yeah.
Bash at the Beach. The one on the actual beach.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, and the one I always come back to, it goes back to episode 1, the straight jacket steel cage match between Booker T and Scott Steiner. That was a 5.
That's the standard bearer.
Yeah, that's the mark of a 5. So I try and if I'm ever stumped, and I think I would rather watch Booker T Steiner in the steel cage more than this again. But
I 100% agree.
I think Piper was superb. The crowd is just so hot, and I love a big, loud, screamy crowd. It's fantastic. So it isn't much less, and it doesn't go on too long, really. I think,
It's about 14 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, and it is a real snippet of the time. And from a historical standpoint, it's worth people going to check it out. Just don't expect a Flair versus Wyndham classic or anything like that. But it's I've got 4.5, mate. So it's just a smidge lower than the because it is what it is. These guys do what they can do. The crowd eat it up, and so there we go.
I think it just shows what wrestling fans wanted at the time, and nowadays we kind of favor technical prowess and the character building more than they did in the 80s, I suppose.
The big thing for me is there's 2 things it says on the poster, mate, isn't it? Well, it says wrestling on the poster. So that's one thing. You talk about the work rate, the match quality and all that. But the 2 words that are always used are wrestling business. These guys would have sold a lot more tickets than made a lot more money than some of the guys flying around that we see in modern day. So 2 different ways of looking at it, I suppose.
Yeah, I suppose.
Where would you like to go next week then, mate? How are you going to break the freaking rules this week?
And I am going to break the rules.
Amazing.
So this was essentially the first major pay-per-view. I mean, I know that companies have done closed circuit TV shows before, but this was the start of the biggest wrestling company in the world taking over and making wrestling the phenomenon that it was. And it also had on the biggest star at the time, Mr. Hulk Hogan. Love him or loathe him, he was the face of wrestling for many a year. But I want to go back to one of Hogan's last appearances, but his last appearance for WCW.
Okay.
So I propose that we watch Hogan versus Jeff Jarrett at Bash in the Beach 2000. But where the rule massaging comes in is because, as we all know, that match is incredibly short. There's not really a lot of wrestling to talk about there, but it is very, very important because of the promos afterwards.
Yes.
So I want to cover the Hogan and Jarrett match, and then the promos, and then the Booker T and Jarrett match that actually closed the show for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship.
There is so much meat to get into on that. There is just so,
and if we don't do it, that's why this podcast is in the state that it's in, because of bullshit like that.
Oh man, it's so, there's so much to it. So much to it, and if people aren't aware, then I urge you to literally vote for Magsy, because we'll dive into it properly. You've got the legality, the Hogan playing his creative control card. You've got Vince Russo and Eric Bischoff being in charge of creative at the same time and battling back and forth. Bischoff was supposed to be above Russo, but he would leave with Hogan during the day. During the show, he would leave with Hogan. Russo would change what was going on the show that night. Oh my goodness, there's so much there. It is. From a wrestling standpoint, that match is nothing. Nothing happens, but it's everything that goes around it. Oh, Magsy, what a shite that is! What a shite!
See, breaking the rules is good sometimes.
Yeah, there we go. See now, I my link, I don't want to win at all. I'll watch that on my own time. It's a great match, but I want to talk Bash at the Beach. I want to talk WCW. But
Fun fact: I've actually been watching a lot of 2000 WCW pay-per-views.
Really? Okay.
Recently, yeah.
There's some good stuff.
Gone on a bit of a binge of them recently.
Okay. In a few years' time, there's a certain podcast you can listen to that'll be following along with that.
Mm-hmm.
But in a few years' time, we're literally about to sit down and record Bash at the Beach 96. So that's where we're up to. So that's where we're up to. But yes, my choice, the link I'm going to use will be, well, there's a couple. I suppose you can use WrestleMania itself as the link, or you can use the fact that Mr. McMahon created WrestleMania and he is in this match. Because from that aspect of McMahon creating WrestleMania and hearing about him, remortgaging and to get this show on the road and so on, I started thinking, well, he's wrestled at some WrestleManias. I mean, first of all, I thought about his match against Flair, but that ended up being at a Royal Rumble, didn't it? So I was wrong with that one. So I started thinking about his matches at WrestleManias. He had the one with Hogan and all that sort of stuff. And I thought that could be quite fitting.
Which was going to be one of my picks.
Okay, interesting.
I was going to go with the WrestleMania 19 match.
Yeah,
that's Hogan's last WrestleMania match as well, I think.
It's far better than it's got any right to be.
Mm-hmm.
Really is. But
and that's got good promos as well.
Yeah, and Piper's involved again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I thought we just watched a Hogan match.
We don't want to.
Do you know what I mean?
We don't want to watch another, so we'll both put towards a Hogan match.
So I thought we're going to look at a different Mr. McMahon match from a different WrestleMania. And I'm just going to go with Old Faithful, one of my personal favorites. I would like to take a look at Vince McMahon versus Shawn Michaels, no holds barred, WrestleMania 22.
Oof, that's a crap shout.
Because that's a good match. That's a good match.
It's a great match, yeah, but with so much more to talk about.
Oh, Bash at the Beach. I'm going to vote for you. But let's see where the CWF take us. Let's see where the CWF take us. We can look at Hulk Hogan, Jeff Jarrett, and Booker T, Jeff Jarrett, and Russo and Bischoff, and just all the stuff going on with Bash at the Beach 2000 WCW, the world title, and all that political backstage bullshit. Or we can look at Vince McMahon versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 22, no holds barred. That will be up on the poll later in the week on Twitter. Make sure you are voting, retweeting, etc., etc., etc. I think that's two great shouts, Magsy. So much there to get into on both sides of the coin. Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Absolutely, yeah.
Shall we have a quick scan through the chat before we depart?
Let's do it. Now, a lot of the talk was not even about us, which is typical for the CWF. They went on a rant about what's happening in the DC Marvel universe. So Cam and Sharon went on a little bit of a chat. So Sharon, first of all, says Avengers is the one that has Thor in it. I think that was to you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I remember watching that now. Yeah.
And then Cam says, was that in the Snyder Cut, Sharon? Great film. And he spelt Snyder wrong. And then Sharon says, yes, Cam, I thought it was brilliant. Different spin on the original release. Morty chips in and revisiting the Fahrenheit. I used to wear Fahrenheit, but when I got with my wife, she told me, she told me to stop using it because it made me smell of cucumbers. I don't remember it smelling of cucumbers. I thought it was always kind of like spicy, like cinnamon, nutmeggy.
See, I like cinnamon and I like cucumber, so perhaps that's why I drank it.
Cam then jumps back in and chats with Sharon. He agrees. He just wishes there was more from the Snyderverse, and then says, what's your cologne of choice now? Tomorrow, nothing wrong with cucumber. I mean, and then Mort says Lynx Africa. Classic.
Brilliant.
Classic. I mean, when Lynx used to bring out aftershaves, God, they were grim, weren't they?
I can't really remember.
You must have used Lynx. Yeah,
not aftershaves, body sprays.
Yeah, no, but you the smell of the body spray just slapped on your face.
No, yeah, I get that. Yeah. I don't think I ever had a Lynx aftershave though. I always had a body spray.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to say.
All right. You kind of ruined that for me, but never mind.
Sorry, mate.
Cam says, old school. He likes it. Still gets gift sets from. He still got it from gift sets from 5 Christmases ago. Well, just send it down to Si. He'll just neck it and just get half cut on it.
I'll have it on ice.
And then we get back to the Snyderverse DC conversation. Sharon says, Lord knows what they're doing with DC. They seem to be messing everything up. Cam says the actors aren't really helping. Sharon says, I agree with the most for the most part, but getting rid of Jason Momoa, he was one of the best things that to happen for DC apart from Christian Bale. No one thing, I mean, I'm not a massive comic book movie watcher, but I am pissed off with DC for one thing. So there's an actor called Henry Cavill.
I know him.
He was Superman. And he was also in the Netflix show The Witcher. Now, he's quit being in The Witcher because he was going back to being in Superman. Now, he's brilliant in The Witcher. And really, he knows about the whole lore of the games and the backstory, but he's quit because he really wanted to get back with Superman. I think it was The Rock who actually contacted him, and The Rock who is Black Adam, and he wanted Henry Cavill back to be Superman, and now he's been cut, and he's not going to be the Superman, and they've already recast somebody else as Geralt in The Witcher, so that was ridiculous. Cam says he agrees with Sharon, but he was leaning more towards Ezra Miller as he was hoping for a Flash film. Yeah, but this is that Ezra Miller who I think we talked about a few months ago. He's gone absolutely mental, and he's like kidnaps people and robs off them and things like that. So yeah, he's not a full show. You know, he also is meant to have like a harem of girls at his compound. So yeah, he's not the nicest of guys.
In that case,
yeah. Scottish Sally says Jimmy Snooker should be given the Benoit treatment. This dude legit killed a woman in Cobbled. Yeah, I absolutely agree. Yeah. It's kind of weird how Snooker kind of goes under the radar for what he did when it was literally the same as what Chris Benoit did. Here it comes on next week's Paul Gilberg. And Sharon said, yes, she agrees with me. I didn't want to open that door about Cavill. Well, I mean, I haven't seen Black Adam, the film, but it's got apparently terrible ratings, and The Rock went on a mad Twitter tirade, kind of like slating people who like downvoted the film. It was kind of like a massive vanity project for him, and it was him who got Cavill involved in. They do like teasers and like extra scenes to like kind of like tell you what's going to be happening in the next films and stuff like that. And he got Henry Cavill to come in and film a scene, and because the film flopped at the box office, the basically the DC universe has been thrown away. Whoever's the writer now is basically starting afresh, and Henry Cavill is not again his spot as Superman, which is disgusting. King's Pig's Bladder has brought in a late comment saying he refuses to talk about The Witcher. People shout at me when I do. Is that in a good way that you love The Witcher and they get pissed off because all you do is talk about it, or because you hate it and people shout at you because you slating The Witcher? Because I love The Witcher, and I dare say Sai has never watched it.
No, I know what it is though.
You know the show, or you know that it's off a game?
I know it's off a game. Shah told me the other day.
Brilliant. Well, watch it. It's honestly, it's really good. There's 3 seasons now with the Blood Orange season, and I think there's a cartoon as well, like an anime. But yeah, it's really good. You'd enjoy it.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. I'll check it out. I know Shah's.
You will definitely not check it out. You will definitely not. You're a lying bastard.
I probably won't. Oh, okay. Thank you.
He said he liked Witcher. Yeah, we will leave it there now because Si's like drifting off. Like, I have not watched this, so I am not interested.
The films I watched with Sharon, I have really enjoyed, to be fair. That 4-hour Schneider cut jobby, that was good. That was really good. Despite how long it was, I enjoyed it. It was really good. So, yeah, there we go.
Brilliant.
Fair enough. Magsy, do you want to? Well, first of all, thank you to everyone who has joined us tonight, who joined us on our comeback show 2 weeks ago, who will hopefully be joining us again next week. We're not going to go away again for a little while, I hope. Hopefully, I will be not to be poorly or anything like that again. Thank you to everyone who has joined us in the chat, who has messaged us on Twitter, retweeted stuff, and all that awesome stuff. Very quickly, before we run through anything else with regards to socials and so on, subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
That's important. Make sure you subscribe to SJP World Media, the feeds there on all your podcast players. That's very important as well. And check out your merch, the merch store as well online. Nitro Nights has got loads of shirts. Chain Wrestling's got loads of the shirts for every show. Check it all out. It helps fund the network, which then brings you these shows that you listen to. So, can't ask fairer than that, Magsy, can we?
No, absolutely not. A lot of work goes in behind the scenes.
Well, not by me, but do you want to let everyone know whereabouts they can find you online, Magsy, so they can follow you and then you can ignore them?
Yes, well, firstly, I've actually been liking and retweeting stuff this week, so
nothing by me.
That's a lie. I've retweeted the Chain Wrestling account multiple times.
Okay.
But yeah, you can follow me down here. Why do I still get that wrong? 74 episodes in of live and still get it wrong. At Podfather Mags. You can also hear my glorious tones on the Magsy and Fitch podcast, which if you're watching now will be out tomorrow. But if you're listening on the audio, was already out. So go and check that out. You can also find me on TikTok, although I don't really post videos on there, at Mags All Pods. So that's pretty much it.
There we go. Okay. Anything I'm involved in, you can find on the network that carries this show. That's at SJP World Media. And again, chuck it a follow on Facebook, Twitter, all your podcast providers, and so on. There's so many shows there. I can't list them all because it's ridiculous. There's so much great content there. And, people covering modern day wrestling, people covering TV shows, so many great hosts involved in so many different shows and different formats and everything. There's just something for everyone, I like to think. And there's probably going to be even more added again soon. People, there's always stuff in the works. So make sure you're following at SJP World Media. But most importantly, follow this show itself at Chain_Wrestling on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and that TikTok thingamy. Not that I ever use it. It just is part of the spiel now. I'd feel weird if I didn't say it. My OCD would play up. I won't be able to sleep. But there we go. But on Twitter and Facebook, definitely at Chain_Wrestling. Magsy, I'm off now to watch a little bit of WrestleMania 2, see if they turn those fucking lights up a bit.
Spoiler, they don't. Bye-bye.